Welcome into our first ever Sunday Snapback series. It is our reactionary podcast on a Sunday morning from the Hawkeyes and Tallboys podcast network. We are here again. I'm your host, Rob Wall, here with Beau Freeborn and Dylan Pond with me. How are you guys doing this morning?
We're live.
Hey, I'm kicking this morning. Dylan with Hawkeyes and Tallboys is powered by Dunkin' Donuts and their medium black coffee. So happy to be here, Rob.
We are having Tallboys of coffee this morning, and we want to bring you an episode. This is going to be like a secondary sort of episode every week that we're trying this season. This just to kind of give you a reaction to what happened yesterday. And just set up our next episode, which will be next Tuesday or Wednesday. We'll go ahead and record that for Iowa State, the Iowa State game coming up. So, but first, before we get into all that, guys, there was a game yesterday. First game of this season. Hawkeyes played the South Dakota State Jackrabbits, FCS contender. We've talked about it all week, guys. We came away with a win, 7-3. Not a touchdown was scored. I'd like to get your overall reaction. I'll toss it to Beau first.
Yeah, I mean, I would say a pretty disappointing win. I think a win's a win. You know, we're 1-0, looking forward to next week already. But, you know, I think that we talked a lot about how good this defense was going to be. They showed up. We knew special teams was going to be really good. They showed up again, minus one missed field goal. But as Dylan is probably going to allude to, the offense was very underperforming at more than three phases between the quarterback situation, the O-line play, and then the running back receiver, flex options there. So Dylan, I'll pass to you, but I'll tell you this, it was a pretty ugly win, and I'm not sure how I feel about it today.
Yeah, so this morning at Dunkin' Donuts, fellas, after I paid the lady for the coffee and the donuts we received, I grabbed the coffee and the lid came off the top of it and spilled hot coffee all over my hand. And in that moment, as much pain as I felt, it still felt better than watching an absolutely inept Iowa Hawkeye football offense perform. That was hands down the worst performance offensively I have ever seen in Kinnick Stadium. And this is going to games since essentially 2000, granted not every game, whatnot, but I just have not seen such a subpar performance where, I think some people are going to remember where it took two blocked kicks back in 2009 to beat FCS UNI. No, even then you had a little bit of offense. Like, this was just absolutely pathetic. And we knew how pathetic this offense was to end the season last year after the Citrus Bowl. So you're telling me Brian Ferentz had 8 months to correct an offense that once again is inept, not just in today's college football. I'd argue it's been inept for over 15 years. It's been outdated, and us fans, we've just kind of had to deal with it. And it is what it is because it wins games, right? Well, it almost lost us a game to an FCS team yesterday. I argue that if that defense hadn't played so superb, I mean, that's an FBS championship level defense that we've had for the third year in a row now. And once again, by all indications from this first game of the year, it's going to appear to be wasted again by an absolutely inept offense led by Spencer Petras. We talked about it before. What's the definition of insanity? Continuing to do the same thing and expect a different result. I am just in awe. I have been in awe. I slept on it. I slept for probably a solid 12 hours. And still, I am just baffled by what a poor offensive performance that was. I mean, everybody sucked. Yeah, I can hear the excuses now already. Okay, yeah, we had some wide receivers out. I get it. Some skill position players were out, but that offensive line looked absolutely horrible. We talked about it all week as well, where, okay, yeah, we figured they're going to rotate in some guys and whatnot. And, I think part of this podcast, we feel a little bit of homerism towards Tyler Ellsbury. Didn't see him whatsoever, yet he's listed on the depth chart, which, again, we know means absolutely nothing. So, zero rotation on that offensive line. I thought, a lone bright spot might have been Beau Stevens. He looked good at some points, but obviously took some licks as well. Nick DeYoung, I have no idea what they're doing still playing this guy. I mean, you've tried him at tackle. That didn't work. Now you try him at guard. Yeah, that was absolutely horrible. Logan Jones, underwhelming to say the least. I think just across the board, you even saw Mason Richmond play horrible. So overall, as a unit, they looked horrible. And that's where in any Iowa offense starts, is you got to blame those guys up front. And, I get it, first game jitters. I was expecting a first, bad couple quarters, but an entire game, and inept. That's literally the only word that I can think of to describe this offense. So there's my overreaction for yesterday. It's, we have championship level defense, championship level special teams as well. And I'm not sure that offense could compete with the fucking high school at this point.
I absolutely echo your concerns, Dylan. And honestly, that's part of the reason why we named this episode Sunday Snapbacks, is because, we're going to be kind of giving our reactions and pure, unadulterated, unaltered feelings about it. And I was shocked about how much, we talked about last week, and I really was trying to manifest into the universe that Spencer Petrus's play would take a step forward this year. And I know it's just one game, but I was talking about this a lot yesterday with folks that I was hanging out and having beers with and watching the games with and things like that. And it was just we don't give Spencer a lot of opportunity to throw the ball. And I think when we do give him the opportunity to throw the ball, it's always in we have to have this conversion situation. It's always we'll run the ball for no gain. We'll run the ball for 4 yards. It's 3rd and 6. And then we have to throw the ball and we have to get this 3rd down conversion. And he'll overthrow the tight end, or he had a couple strikes, but he threw a pick. They, Logan Jones, I think, who was snapping the ball, there was a misfire there. There was a fumble that he almost lost, but he jumped on. It's just I want to give him credit, but he doesn't step up in the big when we need him to. And those are the only opportunities he gets. So I feel like it's even more nerve-wracking. I would think it would be for him.
Well, and we talked about it in the offseason too, Rob, alluding to your point. They talked about all this work he put in with his quarterback coach and how he was going to take a huge step forward, was working on mental health, physically and mentally thought he was there. Then came out in the first half and really didn't show us anything. And then I guess from my perspective, even too, I'm sure you guys are in the same boat, but I can't believe that Kirk and Brian didn't bring out Padilla, the second half, just to see if it would change something up, give our offense a little bit of extra spark, especially knowing that he's more of a runner and could throw on the run too. It was just a little interesting to think that, okay, hey, we're going to come out firing right away in the second half for them, see if he can get on a stride, which, again, to your point, there was a couple really good throws he had. But again, there was just not enough moving on the offense, for me to believe that he was probably our best option moving forward. But does that even mean, though, that Padilla isn't that good if they don't have enough trust, to put him in some kind of situation like that?
That's a good point there, Rob. But obviously we're fans. We're not allowed to be in the practices, so we don't know, what Padilla, other than, limited action last year, what he brings to the table versus Spencer necessarily. I think, we know Spencer's not a mobile quarterback. When the pocket breaks down, he's SOL. That is what it is. Whereas Padilla is more of, he can make some plays with his feet and that sort of time, that sort of thing. But other than that, we don't know what goes on every day in practice, right? All we hear is that, oh yeah, Spencer, he's a film room junkie. He's nonstop trying to get better, and that's naturally going to be a Kirk Ferentz favorite. And, I know you hear football coaches say it all the time, I don't play favorites. And yes, they do. I think it's clear that Spencer Petrus is his favorite, based on the preparation, based off of how he looks in practice, based off of, constantly wanting to get better, that sort of thing. I get it. Truthfully, I do. And if he's the best option we got, then that is what it is. And, roll with him. And I get it, because it's twofold, right? You want to, see if Alex Padilla can come in and spark the offense, right? But on the other hand, you want to give, let Spencer know, hey, you're the guy, we're riding with you, get out there and make something happen, right? But at what point do you pull the plug? At what point is it, hey, this is enough, and they're going to watch the film, they typically watch film on Sunday mornings, if I remember right. So, they're probably watching the film right now and, seeing, hey, where can Spencer do better? And, some of those crossfield throws even where, guys are wide open out there in the opposite flat and those throws sail over your head. It's like, I mean, if you can't hit those, you have no business being out on the field on a Division I field. Like I get it. He's got the yips, but again, I just don't even know how to put it in words, like how pathetic that offensive performance was. And he's the quarterback, he's going to take his licks, and deservedly so, because you are the leader of this essentially inept. How many times have I used that word today, guys? Inept offense. Just blasphemous to watch. And, I've seen a few people on Twitter say, oh yeah, rewatch the game and, you'll see how bad the offensive line was. You'll see how bad X, Y, and Z was. It's like, no, I refuse to put myself through that. I want to have a good Sunday, and I know the listeners can tell right now how pissed off I am. Yeah, I'm going to vent about it. And then once this podcast is over and out there for the public, I'm going to get the fuck over it. Right.
Yeah.
Then we're on to Iowa State. But that's what this Sunday Snapback podcast is all about, baby. Letting it out.
We need to let it out.
Way. That's right.
And
you guys are my Hawkeye football therapist. Let's go.
And we'll be your therapist, for all the listeners as well. We're here to, voice our opinions and tell you just how bad we really thought it was. And it was a win, obviously. And it was an interesting way. I think, Beau, you said before, we were talking before the podcast, that it was the first time that since the early 2000s that a team won 7 or scored 7 points without scoring a touchdown.
That's right.
We had 2 safeties and a field goal. And I just want to go through just some basic stats here of the box score. So obviously we won 7-3. Spencer Petras, 11 for 25, 109 yards with a pick. LaShawn Williams on the rushing side, 24 carries, 72 yards. He averaged 3 yards a carry. The longest was a 10. Arlen Bruce led the way in receptions on the team. 5 receptions, 68 yards. He had a long of 27. Our tight end, Sam Laporta, caught 2 passes for 9 yards. Luke Lackey caught 1 pass for 6 yards. Our defense played really well. Jack Campbell led the way, 11 total tackles. Logan Lee behind him with 6. Justin Jacobs with 5, who went out obviously with the injury. We can talk about that soon. And obviously our punter, Torrey Taylor, MVP, 10 punts, averaged 47.9 yards. He had a long of 57. We pinned him down and within the 10-yard line multiple times during the game. I want to get those stats out there for the listeners, but what I want to cover, you guys, a topic is exactly, and Dylan, you talked about this, but like, how bad does our offense have to be before we start making some drastic changes?
Right. And, great question there, Rob. The answer is, I don't know, because we did our preview podcast, right? And we talk about Dylan's keys to victories. And I'm not saying I know it all, but, I know more than your drunken average fan at Kiddick Stadium. I'm going to pat my own back there. So, right. Okay. Key to victory for the offense is getting the tight ends involved in establishing the run. You could tell they tried to establish that run. Okay. But South Dakota State comes in and says, hey, we're going to put 7, 8 guys in the box. No, Spencer Petras has to beat us with his arm, right? Okay. So what do we do there? We get the tight ends involved. How many receptions did you say Sam Laporta had?
2.
How many receptions did Luke Lachey have? 1? Like, you have got to be kidding me. And, I'd love to see Sam Laporta's targets because he had some impossible balls thrown his way where he's a stud. There was one I remember where Spencer Petras threw it behind him and, about 6 feet high, and Sam Laporta somehow almost came up with it. One-handed freakish catch would have been, number 1 on SportsCenter top 10, no questions asked. And it's like that's all you got to do. You got to get the tight ends the ball. And so you can't fault Brian Ferentz there. He's calling the right play. He was trying to get those guys involved, right? Okay, so what it comes down to is execution. You hear the Iowa coaches say that all the time. It comes down to player execution. Okay, we have a quarterback, Spencer Petras, that is not executing. Yes, he's a great kid. Yes, he's a great leader for the team. Get him the fuck out. Find somebody who can execute the quarterback position. And no, I'm not saying it's all his fault because, he had guys in his face all day as well. That number 99, don't know his name, from South Dakota State, was in his face like nonstop in the second half. So again, no, that falls on the offensive line, right? But the stats speak for themselves. 11 for 26 with 109 yards and an interception, and probably should have been more interceptions. I can think of at least, 1 to 2 more that were just jaw dropping. Like, what the hell was that plays?
Yep.
So when is it enough?
To that too, another thing I wanted to mention there as well, there's a lot of blame to be put on a lot of folks, but if you were listening from home, you could hear a lot of the fans booing in the third and fourth quarter, when we wouldn't get a first down after a third down conversion here. But who do you think the fans were actually going after? Do you think it was more on Petrus? Do you think it was more Brian and Kirk Ferentz? Do you think it was the O-line? Do you think it was just a culmination of everything? Rob, what do you think there?
Okay, so I feel bad saying that the boos are all for Spencer Petrus, but like I think that the fans were booing the situation. Like I think they're just booing this Hawkeye team in general. Just like, we love you guys and we know that you can be good, but like why can't you get the most basic things done? Like you can't even convert I think we were I just looked at this stat, 4 for 17 on third down conversions. South Dakota State was 3 for 16. So, I mean, their defense wasn't that good. It's just how terrible our offense is. So yeah, so I think they're just sick of seeing like us not be able to move the ball at all. Probably, if you're a football fan, that has to be the most frustrating thing to. I mean, this Iowa Hawkeye football team, this current version that we saw yesterday on the field, is the most frustrating football team I've ever had to watch in my life. I can't think of another team that is more frustrating to watch than this team.
And for those of you listeners that don't already know this, Rob is a Chicago Bears fan, and he says the Hawkeye offense is more frustrating to watch. And this man, 17 weeks a year, has to watch his Bears offense. Like, let's throw that out there for a second for some of you football fans. Like, my God, if he says this is the most pathetic offense he's seen and, the most frustrating to watch, like, take a look in the mirror. My God. And, Beau, excellent point bringing up the boos. And I think the best answer is it's just a culmination of everything, where it's offensive line sucked, skilled players sucked, quarterbacks sucked, wide receivers, with the exception of Arlen Bruce, who I think had a phenomenal game, sucked. Yeah. Tight ends sucked. Just everything sucked. Play calling. We don't even know if the play calling sucked, but I assume it sucked because the rest of the offense sucked. So that comes, that falls on the head of Brian Ferentz there. So, I know I'm a Brian Ferentz homer as well, and I like the guy, but he's got to take some of that blame too, because ultimately he's responsible for this unit. And then the man that's responsible for him, Kirk Ferentz.
I don't want to toot my own horn or anything, but in the second and third quarter, I was sitting right next to my wife, Liv, and I was telling her, hey, I was going to do this. I was going to do that. And it was literally 3 straight offensive series. I called every play. So like for somebody sitting in the stand, knowing situational, what exactly, like you got to be able to change that up too, so I totally get that. Rob, I think that was a terrific answer. On another note, maybe a little bit more positive, other than the crowd booing, we heard a lot of MVP chants for Tory Taylor, and Rob had said these stats a little earlier: 10 punts, almost 48 yards a punt. And how many of those? 7 landed within the 20? How many of those landed within the 10 or the 5? Dude, what an awesome performance by Tory Taylor.
He's really padding his stats. He's showing everybody that he, is going to be an NFL player one day. I mean, I saw him on the sidelines multiple times, like talking to Spencer, talking to the guys, like trying to keep the positivity. You could see on the sideline they were frustrated. You know what I mean? You could see the players frustrated, but I mean, great performance by Tory Taylor. He literally puts us in the position for that defense to succeed, and that I think he's the reason why we won the game yesterday.
Absolutely, no doubt. Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. If Torrey Taylor was not our punter, we do not win that game yesterday. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. An absolute elite performance from him. I think, no doubt about it, he's going to get drafted in the NFL this year, or at the very least undrafted. And, I think there's a good chance he ends up going for that reason. And then another thing, and I hate to bring it up again, but you were talking about the booze there, Beau, and Jack Campbell, came on, his post-game press conference and was talking about it. And I get it, the offensive guys, he's built relationships with them. He's their brother, because he knows it's not the defense the fans are booing, right? It's the offense. And, he's a good human being and wants the best for his teammates. He's always going to stick up for his guys. Like, absolutely love that in a teammate. But what you have to realize is college football is a completely new game. Whether you like it or not, college football is officially, now that players are getting paid, that is a semi-professional football game. These players are getting paid over $100,000 worth of scholarships, right? They're getting paid now on the side for their name, image, and likeness, which is well-deserved in my opinion. But look at NFL stadiums. In an NFL stadium, it's entertainment, right? That's what football is for us. It's entertainment. That's why it brings in so much money. That's why it's America's game. And so in the NFL, if the product is not up to a certain standard, you're going to hear boos, right? That's business. And that's what college football has become, especially in this name, image, and likeness world. It is a business. So I understand not liking the boos, but if you don't like the boos, fucking do something about it. Jack Campbell, you're a leader for this team. We hear all the time what a silent leader he is. Get a little vocal. We heard it back in 2010, I think it was, when, Iowa's offense was a little bit subpar and their defense was phenomenal, right? Coming off of that Orange Bowl win from 2009. And fucking, who was it? Not Mitch King. I think it was Pat Anger. Pat Anger and Ricky Stanzi were very, very good friends back in the day, right? Pat Anger gets out there on the field and yells at his offense and says, get a fucking first down. My guys are tired. It's like, do something. Somebody on that offense needs to light a fucking spark under their ass and go. And I don't know who it's going to be. I mean, somebody's got to step up. Everybody's got to step up. That offensive line's got to step up. Everybody across the board has got to step up because, Torrey Taylor is a phenomenal punter. We should not see him as often as we do. What we saw a stat earlier, when Iowa punts 8 or more times, they've had 6 wins since 2020. That is ridiculous. That can't happen. This offense needs to improve. So Jack Campbell, as much as I love watching you every single Saturday, be the guy, step up, be a captain, be a vocal leader. That's what this offense needs.
I agree. So before we talk about the rest of the team here, because we're kind of we need to talk about this offense. It has to be said. We have to be able to express how terrible this is. But I think it's good for us to get it out. And I want to talk about the defense and how outstanding they were. But before we get to that, guys, I have a question for you. So let's say hypothetically, Dylan, you are in the position to make the changes that need to be made. Because let's look at the team as a whole. Like we have the guys that we have right now. You know what I mean? Like with the recruitment season's over, this is the team. This is what the players on the team is what we have to work with right now. What changes would you make if you had if you were Kirk Ferentz? Like, what changes would you make to help the offense become more competent?
Well, first of all, I would go to my employer and ask for a raise, because the current offensive coordinator at the University of Iowa, Brian Ferentz, makes well over 10 to 15 times what I make on a yearly basis. So, I understand that's kind of a cop-out thing to say, but I don't get paid to make those decisions, right? Like Brian Ferentz does. That's what you get paid the high bucks for. You don't get paid to do whatever daddy wants you to do. Like, you get paid to make the offense better, and you're not doing it. So, okay, Brian Ferentz is fired. Dylan Pond, officially the new offense coordinator for the University of Iowa Hawkeyes. Let's go. Here's what I'm doing. It's like, okay, I understand Iowa football in a nutshell since Hayden Fry. And obviously, Kirk Ferentz is a disciple of Hayden Fry. So this is how he wants to run it, right? Okay. So outfield position. So we look at that. Okay, Torrey Taylor gives us phenomenal field position on the offensive side of the ball and for our defense. So, okay, so he puts our defense in good positions, which in turn put our offense in great positions. So right there, you don't need to touch anything. Phil Parker, LeVar Woods, their units, perfect. Don't need to do anything there, right? Okay. So offensively, where it all starts up front, the offensive line. Now they took Logan Jones from the defensive line and stuck him at center. It's been one game. Can't say it's a failed experiment yet. We're keeping him there. Okay. Guard play yesterday, with the exception of Beau Stevens, utterly horrible. Okay. Who else we got? You know, we look at Jennings Dunker. You know, we saw him a little bit, but not a lot. Okay. I'd like to see some more of him. What we did see, it looked pretty good. So I understand getting your feet wet, playing at Kinnick. You know, get some more guys rotated in. Ellsbury, another one. You know, let's get him rotated in at those guard spots, see what's going on there. Tackles. Mason Richmond, I think everybody knows he's kind of been the guy over there at left tackle. And now that David Davidkoff's not playing, you know, I think you got to kind of keep him where he's at. So no changes there. Connor Colby over there on the right side. You know, we saw Nick DeYoung bump in. Yeah, I don't know if we think about bumping him back out to tackle where he's maybe a little more natural. We look at Jack Plum as well, who I think was dealing with an injury. I didn't see a whole lot of him yesterday. So that's my answer on the offensive line. We got to rotate guys in and we got to figure out who the best five are. Because yesterday, that was not the best five out there on the field. That was
I don't think
anybody can tell you that.
Yep.
I mean, Grandma in the stands could have told you that offensive line sucked, right? You know, and that's, as an official, that's how we know when something bad just happened, right? We just blew a bad call because Grandma up in the stands is pissed off. Grandma should never be pissed off. Grandma should be there to watch her kids play, her grandkids play, and have nothing but a smile on, even when, you know, her grandson's getting his ass kicked up and down the field. Just loves watching him do what he's doing, right? Okay. So Grandma's pissed off at this Iowa offensive line. Let's start swapping out. Let's see what we can do. Then we bump back to quarterback. Okay. Spencer Petras, he's not executing. Okay, who can execute? You know, next man up, Alex Padilla. Rotate him in for a series, see what can happen. Okay, maybe he's not the answer. You know, Joey Labus doesn't know the playbook. We heard for the last 8 months that Brian Ferentz is simplifying the playbook, right? Okay, with a simplified version of the Iowa offense, Spencer Petras still can't execute. Okay, let's see what Padilla's got. Let's see what Joey Labus even has. Carson May just came a few months ago, so we're not touching him. But we got 3 quarterbacks, essentially, we can rotate in early in the season and see what they got. Running back position. Didn't see a whole hell of a lot of Gavin Williams, right? Now, I don't know if that's mainly because LaShawn's better or if Gavin's dealing with a little bit of the injury bug. Like, okay, there you go. So just like half the offense is hurt, you know, Gavin Williams was hurt as well. Boogie looked good. LaShawn Boogie Williams, I thought he looked pretty good. You know, he had 0 offensive line helping him, but at least it was better than when Tyler Goodson, you know, dances around 4 yards in the backfield, all for a -2 yard gain, right?
Yep.
So love to see that north-south running. I don't think there's much change needed there. We saw a little bit of Caleb Johnson yesterday as well. You know, even saw a Monty Padawan run. So maybe throw a few more of those in there. I don't know. That doesn't hurt. Then we look at the tight ends. Okay. We got 2 studly tight ends in Sam Laporta and Luke Lachey. You know, you could rotate in Addison Ostringer in there as well. Right? Don't really need to change much there. And then wide receiver, got Nico Reganey out with injury. Arlen Bruce looked phenomenal. You got to keep him on the field. Alec Wick, from what I saw, ran some crisp routes, looked good. Just Spencer Petras couldn't get him the ball, right?
Yep.
Again, so receivers, I don't think we need to do much with. Just need to get guys healthy. Tight ends don't need to do much with. Rotating around on that offensive line would be a big thing. And then rotating at quarterback. Because Spencer Petras' performance, absolutely unacceptable. So there you go. The Iowa offense is fixed. Now I get, what is it, set? No, Kirk makes $7 million a year. I think Brian's like in the 1 to 2 range. So I want my raise, Gary Barta.
That's a great answer, Bill. I love that how you broke it down into all the positional pieces. In my opinion, I mean, and we've talked about this, we got to get those tight ends involved more. I saw them run an out route. I saw them run like a button hook route. They ran a slant over the middle, and we didn't get them the ball. Like they were very basic routes. Like if we're gonna have those guys in the game, like we have to be able to get them the ball. And like I don't care how we do it. It could be the most basic thing. It could be like a tight end screen, like a bubble play off the end of the line there. It could be like anything. And if they're having trouble, like if the offensive line is having trouble with getting their pass blocks, then we need to run like run it out of a different formation. We need to be able to like protect him. Let's pull in a running back. Let's have 2 running backs back there in shotgun, and have them pass block a little bit more. Like just anything that we can do to get him a little bit of time to throw the ball.
That or even conversely, trying to get the ball out of his hands even quicker, run even quicker routes, run things to get the ball out of Spencer's hand so that D line gets tired. They start to shrug off a little bit, which will then open up holes for running, which will keep them on their feet. And then we can help hit the play action pass, which again, like you were saying, Rob, will give us a little bit more time to actually air the ball out and get the ball downfield.
Yeah. We just got to be able to protect them.
In theory, it's all perfect, right? But
Right.
You got to be able to execute.
Yep. We got to here's the thing that I don't believe. I don't believe that the athletes in our locker room are worse than the athletes in the South Dakota State locker room. You know what I mean? But like in the trenches, the offensive line, they were getting their asses kicked by this South Dakota State line. Like they were all over the place. Are they that good? I mean, South Dakota State is no slouch, but like, how are we going to be able to contend and defend the Big Ten West if we're playing like this? Can you imagine if we played like this against Wisconsin? Anyways, I digress.
That wouldn't. No, you're spot on there, but Rob, because that's not going to be a good day. And, and I don't apologize for some of my negative takes on here this morning. I really don't. But that being said, it's been quoted by Kirk Ferentz, I don't know how many times, his teams see the greatest amount of improvement for one throughout the season. So his best football teams are typically in November, right? We've heard that plenty of times. But also he said that he sees the most improvement from week 1 to week 2. So hearing that this defense can improve, that is an awesome sign, and obviously losing Justin Jacobs hurts a little bit. And then the Hawks reacted so flawlessly to that and just moved into cash and brought Cooper DeJean in, who looked phenomenal. I am so pumped that number 3 is wearing a Hawkeye jersey, which, he was a Hawkeye fan his whole life. He wasn't going anywhere, but fired up that the former, Gatorade Football Player of the Year chose the Iowa Hawkeyes. And got Terry Roberts, technically a backup cornerback, looked awesome as well.
He looked
he
great.
was shut down all day long. It was so good to see Quinn Schulte stepping in for Jack Kerner. We had a few hesitations, maybe some reservations about that secondary. Those are all out the window. They looked phenomenal. Love to see it. And then, Seth Benson and Jack Campbell as well, looked great per usual. That defensive line, rotating guys in and out, just like we talked about all week. They looked great. So that defense, like I said before, they are championship level good. And, they're going to continue to improve on their already awesome pedigree. If our offense can make a big improvement from week 1 to week 2, I feel good about the rest of the season.
You talked a lot about the secondary, which arguably played probably the best complementary football that, we could have asked for, at least to start the season. How about that front line? I know a lot of people were really excited about the depth and what was going to happen with that D line. They forced four sacks, a couple of tackles for loss, obviously 2 safeties. And I thought the leader on that team obviously didn't have the most tackles other than Logan Lee, but Deontay Craig looked really good. I was very impressed with how good he played yesterday, and honestly, everybody on that D line. So that was really good to see too, especially with, again, the high expectations they had coming into the year.
Oh, absolutely, man. Noah Shannon looked great. Deontay Craig looked great. Logan Lee looked phenomenal. I know he's a defensive tackle, so it's not a great comparison, but he just reminds me of Drew Ott, the way he plays the game and he's just constantly a force, constantly in there. I'm missing people. Way out Black looked awesome.
Joe Evans played well.
Evans looked awesome.
Joe Evans looked awesome.
Yeah, that entire defensive line, they played so good, and they were, them and Torrey Taylor are the reasons that we won this game, and so that's awesome to see. It really is that, when your offense can't play any worse, that defense keeps you in and, scores more points than your offense does to win you a ball game. That's pretty cool.
And go ahead, Rob.
I was going to mention that our defense outscored our offense, which is typical classic Iowa football. I think, it was interesting that we got to see a lot of how like Terry Roberts shine in this defense yesterday. And I think part of that is because they're not throwing to Riley's side. You know what I mean? Riley Moss is like, obviously, if you're from an opposing standpoint, like our best secondary member. He's an All-American, you know what I mean? So it's like they're probably not, he's going to be on their best receiver, and they're probably not going to throw him the ball as much, which kind of opens it up on that other side of the field with Terry Roberts. He made a couple of great tackles, right at the line of scrimmage, and he had a couple of knockdowns that I saw that looked amazing. I mean, I was super excited to see Terry Roberts play that well.
And like from an emotional standpoint too, it was almost like in a leadership role out there. He'd get a play, he'd flex to the crowd, pump his team up. Like, I absolutely love that. So that even brings up a question too, is, what does Jamari Harris do coming back next week? Having this week off and giving Scary Terry, the opportunity, he took his opportunity and shined. I'm sure they'll do some more rotations and things of that nature. Obviously it's bound to happen, but Terry played well enough to make me believe that he should have been, the starter for sure going into this year.
Yeah, I agree. And that means that there's just another dog in that secondary that can be plug and play elsewhere. You know what I mean? Because we're going to see teams like Purdue who want to throw the ball a lot. We need to have guys that can be able to rotate in. And so, that was great. Quinn Schulte played really well. He had 4 pass deflections. Scary Terry Roberts had 2. Deontay Craig had a pass deflection. So did Justin Jacobs before he left with injury. So really looking forward to seeing this defense get better and play better. Just an amazing, obviously. And, here's the interesting thing about Iowa. And I was telling this to people I was hanging out with yesterday when I was watching the game. But when I feel like Kinnick and everybody just has a sigh of relief when the defense runs onto the field. And now it's all everyone's just like, oh, yes. Okay, let's get a pick 6. Here is where something's going to happen for our team. But when the offense runs out in the field, I feel like everyone's like, can send like their assholes pucker. It's just like, oh shit, here we go.
Well,
like,
and talking about the fans too, I mean, look at, obviously we got the ball first and then we punted it down. We pinned them deep in that north end zone. Another 2 or 3 false starts to start the game. Like, how loud were the fans getting into it, And again, in the second half, when we needed it, needed a big stop or needed something, the crowd got into it. I thought outside of the booing and the MVP chants for Torrey Taylor, I thought that the crowd did a really good job of keeping everybody engaged and giving some support throughout the game. So I was really impressed with that.
Yeah. Well, you guys, we kind of covered the offense and defense and special teams and what we thought. We were off on our predictions, obviously. If you bet the under, you were in the money. I was telling you to bet the under. I was right. I didn't think that I'd be right by that much. I think this all came as a surprise. The final score was definitely a surprise. This is a classic Iowa game. And of all the teams I've ever followed, I've never followed a team like the Iowa Hawkeyes. I'll tell you that much. As a fan, I am more and more shocked the more I watch games of the Iowa football Hawkeyes, the football team. It's just ridiculous. We do the hard things so well, and the easy stuff we're shitty at. Like scoring points in college football, like the worst teams can at least score. So that's
Right.
kind of, let's get to final thoughts, you guys. What else do you have to add?
I think if anything, big takeaway is, if LaShawn Williams, as well as he did yesterday, if he didn't fumble that ball, it's likely we're going to go and punch that in there, because we're within the 5-yard line after that run. It makes you wonder, if the offense would have jump started after being up at that time, then 14-3, or how we would have responded after that too. So just kind of makes you wonder in hindsight what would have happened if we could have got at least one touchdown on the board.
Right.
If we would have,
fans' perspective too, right? Like,
I don't think
all
we
of
would
us
have.
are. I'm sorry, we're overreacting today, obviously, right? Like, we only scored 7 points, and most of it was, defense and special teams related. Would we be having these kind of reservations if we would have gotten at least another touchdown on the board? You know what I'm saying?
I don't think we would have been
absolutely not.
talking about it as much. Sorry, go ahead, Dill.
No. You're spot on there, Rob. We would not have been talking about it as much because, we'd feel a little bit more positive. Hey, at least we showed something. We punched it in the end zone. And you're spot on. Obviously, we're overreacting. We're very passionate. And, if we get in the end zone there, the offense looks a little bit better, right? So, This offense, it's just can't afford the little mistakes. Just really can. And luckily for us, we have a, all-world defense and all-world special teams that can bail you out. And that's what they did yesterday. And at the end of the day, guys, as much as I've bitched, we came out with the win, right? We're 1-0, and we're on to Iowa State.
That's right.
Couldn't have said it better myself, Dylan. Well, thank you for listening, guys. We're going to close out. This is our first Sunday snapback game reaction. It's a Sunday morning, and we're going to do this every week for this season. We're going to have our little Sunday recaps. So please feel free to tune in, follow us on Facebook. It's, I think, Hawkeyes and Tallboys on Facebook. On Twitter, it's going to be @HTallboys. You can find us on YouTube. We'll be posting this today, so you can see our live reactions. And then we'll have another episode coming up to preview Iowa State in a few days. So appreciate you listening. We're going to close it out, and we'll see what we can do next week, guys. Thanks.